fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn with us.
As young adults, many of us are familiar with dystopian films. This genre of film is very attached to young adults as the main target audience. The setting, themes, and characters fit with the young adults that are starting to think more critically about issues in society.
Day one, Greeny. Rise and shine.
To ensure understanding of the genre, let's talk about its brief history. So, what is dystopia? Dystopian fiction starts with its opposite, utopian fiction. Utopian fiction are tales that envision a better world and a perfect society, as the word utopia itself has the meaning good place. If utopia is a good place, then dystopia is the opposite, that is, bad place. It was first recorded from John Stuart Mill's political speech in 1868, where he used the word to describe a place where attempts to create an ideal society had gone badly. The world within these films are often nightmarish and fearful, with themes of contemporary society from real life, where corruption is thick, or with threats such as climate change, nuclear war, overpopulation, or genocide. No doubt that most young adults have already watched these well-known dystopian franchises, such as The Hunger Games and The Maze Runner. Those films' portrayal of society mirrors a certain aspect of society in the real world, namely class inequality, that is, a system of society where different people are grouped in different social classes in accordance to their respective part of identity, ranging from wealth, social power, influence, and so on. In general, society can be grouped into contrasting classes, which are the lower class, who are usually characterized by a lower income or lower social standing in society, and the higher class, who are in a higher echelon of social-economic standing in society. Naturally, the higher class has a certain power over the lower class attributed to its position. In this video, we will be focusing on certain levels of the higher class in society, being the government or any similar organizations who have absolute power over society, that is, having near zero limitations or restrictions to the range of their actions towards society, and the ethics behind their actions. Ethics has been the muse for man's rumination since the earliest beginnings of society. And yet, ethics is still a field full of mystery and relativity to man. Some have mapped ethics as a social construct. Rousseau claimed that society begins when a man has managed to convince others of a providential decree pertaining to his ownership of a piece of land. Nature's land claimed, and in doing so, creating an artificial, natural system to benefit people, or more accurately, the elite. Ethics is the propaganda in which the elite ensures their survival against a rallying and disillusioned mass of lower-class people. Nietzsche has also expressed that morals or ethics are a tyranny against nature and against reason. It is the narrowing of a perspective from the freedom nature desires to limited horizons. These views come from more recent philosophers as a result of the newer generation's zeitgeist that is heavily affected by a myriad of revolutions. Older philosophers have traced ethics as an authentic part of a man's being, a part of our very identity. Who is right? Both sides of the argument have reached no agreement in the nature of ethics. However, many compromises have been made, that is, the sort of perversion of ethics based on other factors such as context, geographical condition, circumstances, and so on. These compromises resulted in many formulations of dogmatic ethics, namely, the law, human rights, treaties, and others. These forms of ethics are not purely ethics but a simplified version of ethics. As mankind has yet succeeded in grasping even the hems of ethics' dress, we must be satisfied for now with just an image of her. Dystopian films use dark themes such as human experimentation. This is why ethics are highly discussed in this genre. Many become curious. Why do the people of power in dystopias do such things even though they have the responsibility for the well-being of the people? The common thread between both films is exactly that question. Why did their actions complicate the life of their people? If, supposedly, the people in power are the ones that should improve society, why do their own people turn against them in the end? First, let's understand the people in power's perspective. The Capital, who is the government in the Hunger Games, created the games as a form of reminder to the district residents. Another function of the games that the government is too proud to admit is survival. For without the district residents laboring for the capital would not be able to stand. Rebellion or any attempt by the districts to rally against the capital and gain an equal standing to them would cost the capital their very foundations. Wicked is the organization who has the power to control the sheep without a shepherd that the population has created. On the brink of apocalypse, they created the maze. The maze was an experiment to find a cure for a viral lethal disease that is plaguing the world. To Wicked, this experiment is the only way to save humanity and the world. How about the people's perspective? In the Hunger Games, the games were seen as a brutal form of control by the government, a nationwide scale, televised killing competition. It is the manifestation of the government's sadistic urges for entertainment. The government in the Hunger Games is evil in the people's eyes. Gladers in the Maze Runner sees Wicked as an evil organization. They use special children as subjects to the experiments, forcing on them various tortures, both mental and physical, in order to map their psychological and somatic responses to those stimuli. They are more than willing to torture hundreds of children to achieve their goal. Obviously, or as obvious as it can get with ethics, the government in the Hunger Games has bad intentions, which resulted in bad results as well. They are consistently wrong in both their intentions and their results. So, here we can more safely judge the actions of the government to be wrong. On the other hand, Wicked started off with good intentions. Their world brings on the edge of an apocalypse. A viral lethal disease threatens to wipe out humanity. Wicked's initial intentions were to save humanity from both the apocalypse and the disease, a noble intention. However, in practice, Wicked resorted to using children for the test experiments. Many of these children were stripped from their families and were later subjected to traumatic events during the experiment. They failed their goals and were left with the result of dead children on their hands. Despite their initial good intentions, in the end, they produced horrible results. Hence, we see another important nature of ethics. Intentions and results don't always line up. A good intention can produce bad results and vice versa. Simply, intentions and results are not adequate enough reasons to judge ethics. When it comes to discussing intention and result, there can be found parallels between reality and fiction. Therefore, we can find historical events that are similar in nature with the events in the Hunger Games and the Maze Runner. First and foremost, it is important to understand the reasons behind these events when discussing them through various perspectives. In these examples, we'll be discussing it through the perspectives of the people in power and the people themselves. Between 1933 to 1945, the Holocaust was a systematic persecution and extermination of Jewish people at the hands of the Nazis. It is a terrifying and gruesome event of genocide. But what are the Nazis' justifications for the Holocaust? After the events of World War I, Germany was plagued by many misfortunes, huge deaths, people suffering, and so on. Hitler used this momentum to gain power by a coup and waging the Second World War, but they needed a political scapegoat to further empower their movement. This led them to blame Jewish people for all of Germany's misgivings. In an interview between the perpetrators of the Holocaust and the author Lawrence Rees for his book The Holocaust, one of the questions asked was, even after the Holocaust was over, did some of those involved feel they could justify it morally? In Rees' talk with Rob Atar, the journalist quoted, "If you talk, for example, to former members of the NKVD, that is Stalin's secret police, who were involved in the horrendous deportations of Kalmyks or Chechens or Crimean Tatars, in the most part what they'll say is, if I didn't do it, I would have been shot. And it's very hard to go somewhere in an interview after that." But what was extraordinary about all these former Nazis is that I don't think we ever heard that answer in all the years we were doing this. What we tended to hear was at the time they felt it was the right thing to do. Those involved in the Holocaust still felt that they could justify their actions morally. Some of the former Nazis felt that it was the right thing to do, but through the eyes of their victim and most people, they are seen as racist and murderers. If we compare this justification through intention and result, we find that what happened here is similar to the government in the Hunger Games. How is it similar? In the eyes of the groups who have power, they aren't doing anything particularly wrong. However, in the eyes and perspectives of their victims, the Jewish people and the district residents, they are seen as the antagonists, evil, ruthless murderers of their families and friends. Another historical event we could discuss is the pinnacle of the Second World War, the atomic bombing in Japan, August 1945, by the US. The question arises, why did they decide to bomb Japan in the first place? And were they justified for it? It was the president's, Harry Truman, decision that the weapon would be used with the goal to end the war. Through the National Park Service site, the US government wrote that Truman did not seek to destroy the Japanese culture or their people. The goal was to destroy Japan's ability to make war. According to the authorities at Hiroshima, out of a pre-raid population of 255,000 people, 66,000 people died because of the bombing, and 69,000 more people were injured. At Nagasaki, out of a pre-raid population of 195,000 people, 39,000 people had died and 25,000 more people were injured. This immense number of death tolls causes the everlasting questions about ethics, morality, and justifications. Was Truman's decision to authorize these nuclear attacks right? Truman had little choice, said Sir Anthony James Beaver, a British military historian who spoke in favor of Truman when faced with the Japanese refusal to surrender. It was the least bad option, said James Maddox, a history professor at the Pennsylvania State University who also spoke in favor of Truman. He explained that a bloody invasion and around-the-clock war would have led to a far higher death toll, which means the atomic weapons actually saved thousands of American and Japanese lives. If there are certain historians that agree with Truman's decision, then there are certain historians that disagree. One of them is British historian Richard Overy, who spoke that the bombing was immoral and unnecessary. Japan was finished as the Soviet invasion of Manchuria that August showed. Further blockade and urban destruction would have produced a surrender without the need for the costly anticipated invasion or the atomic bomb. Another view similar to Overy's, American historian Tsuyoshi Hasegawa explained that better options were discarded. Truman could have invited Stalin, leader of the Soviet Union, to sign the Potsdam Declaration issued by the USA, Britain, and nationalist China, which demanded the unconditional surrender of Japan in July 1945. It is believed by the authors of the draft of declaration that if the Soviets were to join the war at this time, it might lead to the surrender of the Japanese. Despite that, Truman avoided that option as he and some of his advisors were apprehensive about the Soviets' entry. Tracing back to what we have discussed about intention and result, this event is similar in nature to Wicked's experiments in the film The Maze Runner. Starting off with an intention of a noble goal, to stop the war and save humanity, but as they underwent the process of achieving said goals, the result backfires. Worse things happened. The US government murdered thousands of innocent Japanese people, while in parallel, Wicked tortured and killed children for their experiment. Both are horrifying events that ended in horrific results that, if we remember again, came from noble intentions. As we know now, there is a thin invisible line between risking something for the greater good and sacrificing ethical values to achieve our goal. The parallel between the films and to each historical event discussed in this video portrays a certain paraphrase. The end justifies the means. Wrong or unfair methods may be used if the overall goal is good. It corresponds to the minus malum principle, which states that if we have to choose several options that are all bad, then the choice must be given to the option that has the smallest harmful value. Should we do things if the benefit of the ends exceed the cost of the means? If so, when do we stop?
She's right. This is all just a means to an end. You used to understand that, Thomas. No matter what you think of me, I am not a monster. I'm a doctor. I swore an oath to find a cure, no matter the cost.
In most dystopian scenarios, the very essence of what makes us human is under threat. Whether it's through fictional themes such as the existence of man-eating zombies, or through real issues such as oppression. Dystopian films reflect our concerns about potential danger, which, due to it, is crucial to get viewers to consider how society and issues within films connects to our own reality. A recurring question: what will happen if humans don't deal with existential threats? In doing so, it challenges us to see beyond and predict what the future may look like and possibility of the end of the world. Dystopian fiction is appealing to young adults, according to The Guardian journalist Moira Young. Why? Simply because it is an exciting journey set in an imagined future world. Moreover, the characters in dystopias may also be appealing to teenagers because it represents them in a different setting. The setting and issues in dystopia sometimes can be a reflection of our reality. Usually, problems in socio-economic, environmental, or even political point of view might be a bore to explore from a teenager's perspective. However, the dystopian genre provides a way for teenagers to understand real-world issues in a fictional context. It is important for teenagers or young adults to be aware of the issues happening at hand. Just by knowing the existence of said issues, it helps develop their morality and ethical values. The younger generation is the future, and it is important and vital for them to make decisions. There isn't a general message that dystopias send, but there's something you can learn through watching, understanding, and analyzing the whole delivery and point of the films. Try pausing for a second and think about the connection between real life and fictional dystopia. Is there a society or a world where everything is perfect? Through cinematic narratives, dystopian films confront the viewers with the kaleidoscope of human behavior and their ethics. As we navigate the complexity of these themes, it is important to understand that different perspectives exist. Every event or every action has a reason behind it, even if it starts with a simple, "Why not?" In addition, both in dystopian films and reality, there are several blatantly contradictory nature of ethics. When viewed in different perspectives, or by intentions and results, ethics has an almost paradoxical position. Therefore, we can conclude another nature of ethics. It is not the fair system of judgment we have hitherto known it for. Instead, ethics is a changeling, ever morphing and weaving through many forms and shapes, throughout people, time, and space.